So while I've been playing Pokemon Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl, there is one really interesting thing that stood out to me that I knew I had to talk about in a video, and that's that some of Sinnoh's Pokemon aren't actually from Sinnoh at all. This naturally seems counterintuitive, obviously, because you would assume all the Pokemon that debuted in the Sinnoh games would be from Sinnoh, but for 10 Pokemon in particular, for one reason or another, that is not the case at all, and I am here to tell you who those Pokemon are, and exactly why these Pokemon aren't from Sinnoh, and where they might actually be from instead. So let's go ahead and get into it, which is all being made possible today by the wonderful sponsor of today's video, UCast Studios, who I run my Pokemon podcast with, and Moore Park College.
It's the most wonderful time of the year at America's Teaching Zoo. This is Wild Lights and Disco Nights. Enjoy an evening on the beautiful hilltop at America's Teaching Zoo, under the stars, amidst the lights, and the disco balls. Walk through the disco ball forest, see Ira the lion in the Lion's Den canopy of lights, and dance the night away in front of our interactive disco dancing wall. While you're strolling down the zoo, enjoy our students as they dress in their most festive gear. Join us on a themed night and wear your best ugly sweater, your favorite holiday pajamas, and party under the stars with glow sticks on Let It Glow, Let It Glow, Let It Glow night. This is the first ever event at America's Teaching Zoo in the dark. Who knows what you'll see? Who knows who will be awake? And who knows who will make a noise or roar? Buy your tickets now because this is the perfect holiday gift and a fantastic night of holiday cheer, great music, lots of lights, and friends and family. Come shine bright and have a wild night at America's Teaching Zoo at our first ever Wild Lights and Disco Nights.
Alrighty, so who are these mysterious 10 Sinnoh Pokemon who aren't actually from Sinnoh, you might be asking? Well, we've got to start off with a very particular group of them, because this has to do with a group of Pokemon that don't appear in the Sinnoh Pokedex at all. So it's pretty infamously well known that in the original Pokemon Diamond and Pearl, there were a bunch of Pokemon that originally debuted in the Sinnoh games that weren't even in the Sinnoh Pokedex, and this included a lot of the evolutions to previous Pokemon, which kinda just made the Sinnoh Pokedex really wonky. However, in Pokemon Platinum, they expanded the Sinnoh Pokedex to include all of those evolutions as well as pretty much every other Sinnoh Pokemon that they hadn't included originally. However, even after the Platinum expansion of the Sinnoh Pokedex, there were still 7 Pokemon that were not included as being a part of Sinnoh's Pokedex. So if these Pokemon aren't a part of that Sinnoh Pokedex, even after that expansion to it in Pokemon Platinum, that would naturally lead you to the conclusion that they're not from Sinnoh, because why otherwise would they be excluded? These 7 Pokemon consist of Heatran, Regigigas, Cresselia, Darkrai, Shaymin, Arceus, and Phione. And in addition to not being a part of the Sinnoh Pokedex, each one of these Pokemon also have additional evidence that support the fact that they are not Sinnoh Pokemon at all. The first of these that we're going to talk about is Heatran, and this is the Pokemon that actually kind of brought this idea to my attention, because Heatran can only be found in Stark Mountain, which exists within the battle zone that you only get access to after defeating the main game and entering into the Hall of Fame. And the thing about the battle zone is that it doesn't appear like it's actually a part of the Sinnoh region at all, because not only is it on a completely separate landmass from mainland Sinnoh, but people within the battle zone actually refer to Sinnoh in relation to the battle zone as if Sinnoh is a completely different place altogether. So it seems to be the case that at the very least, the Battle Zone is like a sub-region of Sinnoh and not actually a part of Sinnoh itself, but it might even be a smaller part of an entirely different region as well, seeing as how, once again, its landmass extends off of the edge of the map of Sinnoh, so there is more to it that we can't see. So between that, the fact that Heatran can only be found here in the games, and that Heatran is not a part of the Sinnoh Pokedex, as we said, leads me to believe that it is not a Sinnoh Pokemon at all, and is instead a Pokemon of whatever region the Battle Zone is truly a part of. Another Pokemon that is not from Sinnoh at all either is Regigigas, and with Regigigas, it's pretty easy to explain why this is. Number one, we have the evidence that it is not a part of the Sinnoh Pokedex, but two, the only reason we even find it in Sinnoh is because it's been sealed within the Snow Point Temple. The backstory of Regigigas is pretty much that it's a Pokemon that is able to move the Earth around and shape the continents pretty much however it wants to, and it's also the leader and the creator of all of the other Regis. With this kind of terrifying power, it was subsequently sealed away in the Snow Point Temple for fear of the destruction that it could potentially cause, and it was also sealed far away from the other Regis, who themselves were also sealed in the Hoenn and Galar regions. So while we find Regigigas in Sinnoh in the games, it's not actually because it's natively from here, it's because it was sealed here against its will. The actual home region for Regigigas is pretty difficult to say, and it probably doesn't even have a home region of its own, because its job within the lore and history of the Pokemon world was to shape the continents and shape the landmass, so it really belongs in the category of those creator deity type Pokemon that don't really have a home within this world itself and are more responsible for shaping it and creating it than anything else. The next two on this list are Cresselia and Darkrai, and they have a little bit different of a reason compared to all these other Pokemon as to why they are not from Sinnoh. It's going to be best to start with Darkrai here as far as an explanation, because it's actually pretty easy to explain why Darkrai is not from Sinnoh. The only way that you are able to encounter and catch Darkrai in the Sinnoh games is by gaining access to its event, and within this event, the way that you encounter it is literally by going to sleep and having a nightmare. So when you encounter Darkrai, you're not technically in the Sinnoh region, you are within your own nightmare that it is creating for you. And with Darkrai's whole concept obviously revolving so heavily around the theme of nightmares, even if it does appear physically within Sinnoh, it's not really actually natively from here, because it's probably natively from the Dream World. The Dream World is obviously something that was introduced in Generation 5 in Pokemon Black and White, and Darkrai might have been a lead-in to this concept, and it's also why its counterpart, Cresselia, is not from Sinnoh either. Since Cresselia, once again, is a counterpart to Darkrai, it is probably also from the Dream World as well, considering that it too heavily revolves around the concept of dreams, and it focuses on the good dreams to counteract Darkrai's bad dreams. And since all of this can be said for these two Pokemon, in addition to the fact that they are not included in the Sinnoh Pokedex, most likely means that they're not in the Sinnoh Pokedex because they're not Sinnoh Pokemon and actually do in fact come from the Dream World. Next up on this list is Shaymin, and Shaymin is kind of a curious case here because it doesn't really have anything going for it or its event that leads you in the direction of where it could actually be from as opposed to being from Sinnoh. But within its event, we do know that it appears within the Flower Paradise, which is a pretty unique location reserved just for it that also is not within mainland Sinnoh. If we look at where the Flower Paradise is on Sinnoh's map, we will see that it's actually right next to the Battle Zone, which, in our point about Heatran, we already kind of established as its own separate sort of region. So since it's so close to the Battle Zone, it probably means that it is a part of this Battle Zone region instead of being a part of Greater Sinnoh. And since the Flower Paradise is Shaymin's home, that would also mean that Shaymin is actually from this Battle Zone region instead of being from Sinnoh. Now we get to what is probably the most interesting one on this list, and that is Phione. And what makes Phione so interesting in this context is that we're not talking about Phione and Manaphy, we're just talking about Phione. Manaphy was clearly designated as a part of the Sinnoh Pokedex even back in Diamond and Pearl, so I think we can safely say that it is from Sinnoh. So if Manaphy is from Sinnoh, then how could Phione possibly not be from Sinnoh? It's pretty easy to think that this just doesn't make sense given Phione and Manaphy's close connection, but in this context, it's pretty easy to see also why this is in fact the case, and they are separate if we simply look at the two's Pokedex entries. Manaphy's Pokedex entries talk about how it was born at the bottom of the sea, particularly in cold waters. This would make sense for it being a Sinnoh Pokemon since Sinnoh is known to be a pretty cold place. However, if we look at Phione's Pokedex entries, all of its Pokedex entries talk about how it was born in warm waters, and this is pretty much the nail in the coffin that wherever Phione is from, it's not from Sinnoh, because Sinnoh is known as a cold place, meaning that it's probably not going to have warm waters for Phione to be born in. Now we're going to be getting into some ones that are a lot easier to explain as to why they aren't from Sinnoh, and that would be the Creation Trio: Arceus, Dialga, Palkia, and Giratina. Obviously, Arceus is not from Sinnoh because it created Sinnoh and therefore existed before Sinnoh even existed, so that's a pretty easy one to explain right there. You can also say the same for Dialga, Palkia, and Giratina, as they were all created before Sinnoh even existed as well. However, what's interesting about these three compared to the other Pokemon on this list is that they are actually a part of the Sinnoh Pokedex, if you're considering the Platinum expansion where Giratina got added in. So since these Pokemon are very clearly not from Sinnoh since they basically created it, then why would they be a part of the Sinnoh Pokedex? Well, in relation to Arceus, I think it all has to do with the myths and legends of the Sinnoh region. I think Dialga, Palkia, and in Platinum Giratina are all a part of this Pokedex because all of these Pokemon are well known to the people of Sinnoh, and they know that these Pokemon, along with Arceus, created the region, so it would only make sense for them to be adopted by the Sinnoh region and be included in their Pokedex. As for why Arceus would be excluded from this though, it actually makes a lot of sense that the Pokemon that came even before Dialga, Palkia, and Giratina at the very beginning of the universe would just not be well known enough to the people of Sinnoh, and they wouldn't have enough concrete information on it to really be able to include it in their Pokedex. It is truly the stuff of myth at this point. I guess we'll see if Pokemon Legends Arceus actually changes this or anything, but what we know right now in the modern Sinnoh day paints that as the likely explanation. I also wanted to bring up the Lake Guardians really quick as an extension of those Pokemon because they are pretty closely related, and I know someone probably would have brought them up if I didn't, but that is because I believe that the Lake Guardians are pretty definitively from Sinnoh. Not only are they a part of the Sinnoh Pokedex, but they actually have literal homes within the Sinnoh region, that being the 3 lakes of Sinnoh and the caves within those lakes. These Pokemon were created to give knowledge, willpower, and emotion to the world, essentially meaning that the world already existed when these Pokemon were created, explaining how they can actually originate from Sinnoh, even though they are closely related to some of these other Pokemon that are a part of the larger Sinnoh creation myth. And with that, those were 10 Sinnoh Pokemon that aren't actually from Sinnoh. If you guys enjoyed the video, be sure to give it a like and let me know your thoughts about all this in the comments below. I'll be back with another video very soon, and until then, as always, thank you so much for watching, I love you very much, and I will smell you guys later.